Hey, what's up my friends? Welcome back to my kitchen. This video is gonna be a little bit of a different one. It is a follow-up video. You see, I've already done an extensive review and test on the Wonder Oven from our place, but I made a fatal mistake. And thank you so much to those who commented in the comments section to let me know about the mistake that I made that could have affected the results of the outcomes of the tests. The results of the outcomes of the test. Just the results of the test. I want these videos to be accurate and helpful and truthful and transparent. And that's exactly why I've decided to do a follow-up test video with the Wonder Oven, using it correctly to see if the results are any different. Now in that first video, I go through all the components and the settings of the Wonder Oven. And if you're interested in that information, go check that video out. In this video, we're just gonna repeat the tests that we did, but without that mistake. So the mistake that I made was the placement of the crumb tray. Yes, that's right, this sneaky little devil right here. It was such a dumb mistake on my part and a complete oversight. So in the original video, I had the crumb tray actually installed over the bottom heating element of the Wonder Oven. I know, what a dumb blunder. It even tells you in the owner's manual, which I read, to have the crumb tray not over the heating element on the bottom, but under the heating element of the bottom. So I'm going to install the crumb tray correctly. You can see for yourself, it is now in the bottom of the oven, not covering the heating element. And we're gonna run our 7 brutal tests on the Wonder Oven again to see if it performs any differently. If you realize the Wonder Oven's not right for you after watching this video, stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm going to give a recommendation of a countertop toaster oven that I absolutely love and have tested and used every single day. So the first test that we're gonna repeat is what I call the preheat test. What we're testing for is how long does it take this oven to get up to the temperature that we set on the dial. Now, if you haven't watched that other video, I'm just gonna let you know, this is where the Wonder Oven got a little bit dicey for me right off the beginning. In this original test, when we set it at 350 degrees on the oven, it actually never got to 350 degrees. I had to crank it all the way up to 450 degrees in order to even get it close to 350 degrees. And it took 11 minutes for us to get there. Okay, so I've got my handy dandy probe thermometer set here at 350. I've got my timer ready to go. I've got the oven set at 350 degrees. We're gonna see how long it actually takes with the crumb tray in the right position. We're gonna see how long it takes the Wonder Oven to preheat to its designated temperature. Here we go. So we're at 3.5 minutes and it's been floating. It got up to 342, but now it seems to be going back down. We're now down 336 and it's following that same pattern that it did with the crumb tray, not in the right places. Now it's going back down drastically in temperature. This is so interesting how this works. All right, we just hit 5 minutes. We went all the way up to 342, but now we're all the way back to 289. Okay, we're at 8 minutes. I'm gonna stop the test right there. We're back down to 304. So in the preheat test, we went all the way up to 342 in about 3.5 minutes. Then we went all the way back to 280. Then we went up to 224, and now we're on our way back down. So huge fluctuations of temperature in this test. So for me, once again, the preheat test on this oven is a fail. My next test is a 5-minute consistent and accuracy temperature test. From my opinion, it's already failed that, but I'm gonna run it anyways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run my timer for 5 minutes. We're sitting at about 284, 282 right now. The problem is we haven't even found a balance of temperature. So even if we were set at 350, but it found some balance around 320, then this could be a meaningful test. But since we're fluctuating so much now and we're down at 280, I am gonna set the 5-minute temperature and I'm just gonna see what the fluctuation does over the temperature. By the way, this is totally preheated. It's been running for about 8 minutes now. So there should be some semblance of consistent temperature and accuracy to the 380 that we've set. So here we go. there's the first minute and we're at 322 degrees. There's minute number 2 and we're at 302 degrees. There's minute number 3 and we're at 279. Minute number 4 and we're at 318. Minute number 5 and we're at 309. The other part of the accuracy test is recovery. I want to see how long it takes the oven to recover to temperature when we open the door for 10 seconds. So we're going to look at the temperature of this oven when we open the door. We're going to open it for 10 seconds, close it, and then time how long it takes to get back to that temperature. So right now the temperature of the oven is, it's climbing. Let's see. Let's hit it at 290. 293. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It took us down to 286. We didn't lose a lot of temperature. There we go, 293. It took 6 seconds to get back up to temperature. All right, in temperature consistency and accuracy, over 5 minutes, we had a temperature fluctuation of 40 to 50 degrees. And on recovery, it was pretty quick. 6 seconds to get it back to 293. So I gotta give it kudos for that recovery. But ultimately, for consistency and accuracy, it was a complete failure again. All right, so our next test is called the heat map test. What we're testing for is hot and cold spots within the oven. We're gonna do this by toasting bread and seeing how the toasting patterns show up on each piece of the bread. Honestly, this is where I expect to have the biggest difference in results from my last test. Because my last test, when I had that crumb tray over the bottom heating element, it didn't actually toast the bottom side of the bread. My guess is this time it's gonna toast both sides of the bread at the same rate, but we'll still be able to see the heat patterns inside of the oven to see where it's colder and where it's hotter. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this bread into the toaster oven on the middle rack. We've got it on the toast mode, and on the toast mode it says to set the dial to 450. So we've got the dial set to 450. I'm not quite sure how long it's gonna take, so I'm just gonna keep an eye on the bread to get a good toast on it, and we'll pull it out and see how it looks. Here we go. This toast is already starting to look pretty dark in some areas, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. And we're gonna take a look. Now, in this test last time, I gave it actually a passing on this test because the toasting was fairly even with it only toasting one side. We just flipped the toast over and it toasted pretty even. So let's take a look at this. This is the back side of the oven here. This is the front side of the oven. You can see that the toast is a little bit darker here in the back than it is in the front. I would say, I mean, that's pretty standard for something like this. It's still pretty even. You do have a bit of variation in each piece as well. You have a bit of toasting here, and it's still pretty light on this toast right here. But let's take a look at the bottom side and see how that did. And that's a lot more done than the top side. So let's take, oh wow, even close to burnt on this toast right here. I would say actually the toasting job it did with the crumb tray above the bottom heating element did a little bit better. Even though we had to flip the toast over to get both sides toasted, it was still even on both sides, even though we had to toast it twice. But this is pretty inconsistent. It's a lot darker on the bottom than it is on the top. Let's just break one of these pieces of bread open to see what they're like on the inside. And they're pretty, so where this bread is lighter, it's still really soft on the inside, but where it's dark, both on the top and the bottom got dark in the same place, it's a lot crunchier. I mean, it's like a cracker, actually. There's no moisture left in that bread at all. And yes, I left it in a little bit longer, but in order for some of these other parts to get toasted, I had to leave it in for that long. This is a really surprising result for me. I actually thought this test would go really well and I was excited to do it again, but for me, this test is a fail. Having part of my bread like cracker and part of my bread just toasted just right is not gonna work for me. All right, the next test is the bake test. Of course, this is to see how well the oven does in bake mode, how accurate it is, and how it compares to baking in a larger conventional kitchen oven. So what I have here is cookie dough from Trader Joe's. It's the exact same cookie dough that I used in my last video, and we're gonna set the exact same parameters. So the package tells us to cook these cookies at 350 degrees from 10 to 14 minutes. So I'm gonna split that difference at 12 minutes, and we're gonna bake at 350 degrees, which we already know isn't a consistent 350 degrees. The results from this test last time was that the cookies were a bit too brown on the edges and on the bottom, and still really gooey and doughy on the top. So we're gonna see if the crumb tray in the right position changes the result of the bake on these cookies. So I got the Wonder Oven set at bake at 350 degrees. And by the way, this dial is not exact, so I'm gonna get it as close to 12 minutes as I possibly can. I have preheated the oven, so I'm gonna pop these cookies in, turn this to 12 minutes, and we'll see how the bake does. Okay, these cookies are at about minute 7, and I think I'm gonna pull them because they're already starting to look a little overdone around the edges. I don't know what that's gonna mean for the top of the cookies, but I am gonna pull them because I don't think it does the test any good just to go the full time. If they burn up, I want to give it the best benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to pull these cookies now. So I'm gonna let these cool for a minute, get them on the cooling rack, and then we'll see what the bake is like on the inside. Okay, so I've let these cookies cool. I haven't looked at the bottom side of them yet. Let's just take a look at these. They do vary a little bit. These two cookies seem to be a lot more done around the edges than these two cookies do on this side. But let's just take a look. So yeah, that's really crispy and hard. Let's take a look at the bottom side. It's not bad. I pulled it out in time to not burn the bottom, but in comparison with the top, of what I think is happening is it's very inconsistent. I think the bottom got done a lot more than the top. As I'm just touching it, it feels a bit raw. So let's break it open and see how it looks. And it is very, very raw. And I stated this in my other videos, cookies are hard because people have different preferences. I prefer my cookies to be cooked, but not burnt and crispy on the bottom. And these are still very, very raw, very much just raw cookie dough. I could actually say that I think the bake on these was even a little bit better with the crumb tray above the bottom heating element, because maybe the bottom heating element was just adding too much heat to the bottom side of this cookie. I'm not quite sure how to diagnose it, but actually I think this is a worse bake on this cookie than in my last test. Oh yeah, that's like eating raw cookie dough on a crispy cracker cookie underneath it. The tops are way more raw this time than they were last time, so I'm gonna call this test a fail. All right, so our next test is what I'm calling the air fry crunch test. Now, the last time we did this, we followed the instructions on the bag of these Costco chicken nuggets, these breaded chicken nuggets. The reason I like using these is because they're real chicken. So you have the moisture of real chicken, but then you also have multiple sizes. So you can really get a feel of how does it cook things that aren't necessarily exactly the same size. So the way I did this in the last test is we followed the instructions on the bag exactly, and those instructions work really well in the air fryer that I use every single day. And that's at setting the temperature at 360 degrees for 10 minutes. Crisps them up nice, still nice, warm and juicy on the inside. It doesn't dry them out. So I'm gonna do that same thing here. In the last test, we did it for 10 minutes and we ended up needing it to do it for another 4 minutes, and they still weren't crispy. Now, this is one of those tests that I think absolutely could turn out differently, because having that crumb tray in the wrong position could have restricted the airflow for the air fryer mode. That is what's so unique about an air fryer, is the way that the fan moves the heat around the food to get it nice and consistent around the food and create that crunch that we love. So I've got the Wonder Oven on air fry at 360 degrees. And I've been preheating it for 2.5 minutes, which is what the owner manual says to do in air fry mode. So I'm gonna pop these in. And I'm gonna extend this time to 10 minutes, and we'll see how they turn out. All right, so our chicken nugs are done. That's 10 minutes at 360 degrees in the air fry mode. Let's hope and pray and whatever we got to do. And these are completely soggy. 100% soggy once again. Almost the exact same result, maybe even worse this time around than last time. This one right here on the very corner edge of the basket has a little bit of crunch right there on the edge where it's like one of those breading clumps with no chicken inside of it. But these are, I mean, yeah, these need at least another 8-10 minutes. Now in the last video, I had the same result. I put them in for 4 more minutes to hope to get them there, and they didn't get there. I'm not gonna do that in this video. We're gonna call this, once again, an air fryer fail. All right, my friends. So in my last video, I did 2 more tests in this oven. One was, I was calling the capacity test, where I made a 8-inch pizza from Trader Joe's dough, and I put some sauce and cheese and pepperoni. And the result was that the pizza was pretty well done on the bottom of the crust, but it was still doughy on the top. And you can go check that out at the other video. I had planned to do that test again for this video, but to me, I just don't see the purpose. The results have been very consistent, even with the crumb tray in its proper position inside the oven. So instead of utilizing my time doing that, I want to go find new and exciting kitchen appliances to test and review. So I'm not going to do that test. The other one was a cleaning test, where I baked barbecue sauce and honey onto the oven rack and the cookie sheet. And you should know that that test was a complete success. This unit is incredibly easy to clean. All of that gunk scraped right off of the rack. It slid right off of the cookie sheet. And that's one huge plus that this oven has going for it, is it's very easy to clean and maintain. But again, my friends, thank you so much for those who pointed out in my last video the mistake that I made. I'm so glad we did this second video to give the Wonder Oven a fair chance. But unfortunately, for me, it just doesn't pass the test of something that I want taking up space in my kitchen, on my countertop, or in my cupboard space, because I think it's wildly inconsistent. It takes too long to air fry things, and it just doesn't work for me. Now, if you do want my recommendation on a countertop oven that I absolutely love and I think performs really, really well, I did a video on it a couple of days ago. You can go check out that video on the Emerald Lagasse countertop oven. That thing is a workhorse. It's really consistent and very easy to use, and I would highly recommend you go check out that video. Again, thank you so much for the feedback, for the support, and for watching this video. Happy cooking.